Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Thank you for welcoming us into your home for this special interview. RTB, the channel at the heart of major events, is hosting for you tonight a distinguished African personality born in Thiès, the capital of the railway and crossroads of West Africa. He is a graduate of the prestigious National School of Administration of Senegal. He entered the political arena in 2014 under the banner of PASTEF, Patriots of Senegal for Ethics, Work and Fraternity. At the head of this party, he made discipline and integrity the core of his priorities. His message of change, advocating for a free and dignified Senegal and Africa, has mobilized the youth. Elected as a member of parliament in 2017, his party caused a surprise by finishing third in the 2019 presidential election. He was prevented from running as a candidate in the 2024 presidential election, but under his leadership, PASTEF won the presidential vote in the first round. Bassirou Diomaye Faye was elected president of the Republic of Senegal and appointed him as prime minister. As you may have guessed, tonight we are joined by His Excellency Ousmane Sonko, Prime Minister of Senegal. Good evening, Mr. Prime Minister.
Good evening, Mr. Boubacar.
So, you are in Ouagadougou for the inauguration of the Thomas Sankara Mausoleum. First of all, how do you feel about the construction of this mausoleum in memory of the father of the August 83 revolution?
Thank you. First, if you allow me, I would like to once again express how pleased I am to be here today on the soil of Faso, a people and a country I have always admired. And I want to thank all the authorities for the warm welcome we have received since this morning, from the airport to the reception with the President of Faso, and for all the attention we have been given since our arrival. It is a pleasure to be here, and I think the national television of Faso owes me something as well, because this is the first interview I have given to a foreign television station in 3 years. And that shows you how important this visit is to me. It's a visit that has a double meaning. First of all, as you mentioned, I came at the invitation of my counterpart, the Prime Minister of Faso, to whom I had first expressed my wish to come for a working visit. And he responded by suggesting this date, which actually coincided with the second purpose of my visit, the inauguration of the mausoleum of one of the greatest men Africa has ever produced, who has been a role model for all of us since our early childhood, namely President Thomas Sankara. And I seized the opportunity because the timing could not have been better for me to be here today. And we actually began discussions in a more or less informal manner. There would be an intergovernmental meeting to address and review the cooperation between the two states. This inauguration is of great importance to us. Everyone who has followed me over the years has had regular references I have made to Thomas Sankara in my speeches and also in my writings. This is not demagoguery. I believe that he's a man who contributed greatly to Africa, who was certainly perhaps a bit ahead of his time, but who today continues to inspire us in the dual aspect of his struggle. The aspect of sovereignty and patriotism is extremely important, but also the aspect of rigorous and serious management of the state with simplicity in order to serve the people. And that is why it is important for me to be here today and through my presence to represent His Excellency, the President of the Republic, Bassirou Diomaye Faye, as well as the entire Senegalese people.
All right, precisely what does President Thomas Sankara represent to you?
You know, for us, we got involved in politics based on a certain number of observations related to internal concerns within Senegal, but also much broader observations regarding Africa's relationship with the rest of the world. Obviously, two concepts took on particular importance in our initial analysis that led to the creation of the party. The notion of patriotism, which concerns Senegal as a people, as a nation, as a state, and the notion of sovereignty, which refers to Pan-Africanism in its most fluid form. Obviously, Africa is not a homogeneous reality. We shouldn't fool ourselves into thinking that as soon as we talk about Africa, it's as if it's a single reality. It is a continent that from east to west and north to south has its own specificities. But it is also a continent that at its core shares a certain number of common characteristics, regardless of the minor differences. And in this second respect, A number of remarkable political leaders in our society today genuinely and deeply inspire our thinking, but also in various ways guide our actions. One of them is certainly President Thomas Sankara, but there are other leaders as well, like Patrice Lumumba and Mamadou Dia from Senegal, who is actually one of our most solid references. You may have seen that recently President Diomaye renamed the largest avenue in our country to give it the name of President Mamadou Dia. Certainly there are others, like Kwame Nkrumah as well. These are all leaders who obviously inspire us. We draw inspiration from them, but we adapt it to our own context. The contexts are not the same, and we can take many of their ideas, their ways of thinking, but by adapting them to our context, to our time, and to the tools we have available today. And that is exactly what Thomas Sankara represents. It's not just in political speeches, but also in the actions that were taken during the short time of his rule to make Burkina Faso sovereign, to restore the values and traditions that are the foundation of Burkinabe society. That is extremely important for any African today who wants to lead a similar struggle.
Precisely, do you think that African countries today should draw inspiration from this ideal of sovereignty and the fight against imperialism embodied by President Thomas Sankara? So, in order to move forward,
it would be very presumptuous of me to speak on behalf of all of Africa, and I would surely come across as someone giving lessons. It's easier for me to speak about Senegal. I speak with a great deal of humility. To make suggestions for the rest of Africa, I think we must take action, since we have been told that we are independent states. This independence, we won it one way or another. Some had to fight militarily, even physically, I would say. Others had to wage political struggles to achieve independence. Once we have this independence, it is up to us to give substance to our sovereignty. What is it that made, over all these years, our leaders, at least a good number of them, agree to continue submitting to dictates and orders coming from elsewhere? That comes back to us, to our elites, first and foremost, but perhaps to a lesser extent. It also concerns the people who must take an interest in and get involved in the management of public affairs. And that is why we believe that we need to be much less on the defensive and instead embody our hard-won independence in a proactive way, that is by taking very concrete actions and seeing to what extent those actions will be challenged or thwarted by others. And only then, if necessary, could we return to the defensive aspect of sovereignty. And that is why, if I take the example of Senegal, since we have been in power for a year to enforce acts of sovereignty, I would point to the issue of military presence. We said that we cannot accept the presence of foreign military bases in Senegal. And for every country that had a military base in Senegal, we officially notified them, telling them that we are requesting the withdrawal of all their troops from Senegal. This operation has been launched. If you follow the news, 2 days ago, a military base was vacated, and the process will be completed by July, after which Senegal will no longer have any foreign military bases on its soil. We don't need them. For me, it should be a normal act for a country to declare that we are sovereign. We have a national army, we have defense and security forces. We believe we are capable of managing our own security. And these are just some of the measures being taken regarding the management of our natural resources. What is it that has prevented Africa from benefiting from its natural resources the way other regions of the world have? In Asia, in the Gulf, in Europe, in America, everyone enjoys their natural resources except Africa. Why is there a need for speeches? No, we take action. If there are things that need to be renegotiated, we renegotiate them. We are open to partnerships with the entire world, but they must be fair, balanced, and mutually beneficial. These are the actions that need to be taken and move forward. And I think that we are part of this dynamic, and we hope that this can be the case for all African countries, because the continent must now take its destiny into its own hands in a sovereign and deliberate way, but by relying first and foremost on itself. And that's what, though I don't dare, in a peremptory or imperative way, extend to everyone, but through our words and actions, I can hope to inspire as well, just as we ourselves are inspired by the positive things that have been done in other African countries.
All right, then, Mr. Prime Minister, one of the issues currently being debated among African youth is the question of the CFA franc. So what is your perspective on the CFA franc?
Our position on the CFA franc has been very consistent. You know, I have the good fortune of being a politician who has written books, and my thoughts are in those books, but my views can also be followed through broadcasts and rallies. Our position has always been consistent. The effort to integrate a sub-region, which involves taking strong actions to create a common market, to have unified tariff schedules, to have a common currency, is a commendable effort. We want an integrated space. We want the most integrated zone possible in West Africa, one that can go beyond the UMOA area, but that is what we want. We wish for it because we live in a world where people come together in groups to be stronger. That is our wish. And currency is an extremely important policy tool for a state. Alongside fiscal policy, monetary policy is extremely important. And it is important that the zone has managed to establish a common market to set up a common currency. But there was a problem. The problem is that this currency continued to symbolize, in some way, a colonial presence, no matter what people said. We considered that once stripped of those elements, this currency would once again become a currency of Africans, by Africans and for Africans. There are symbolic aspects, such as the name of the currency even, though the CFA of 1,960 no longer really means the same as the CFA of 1,900. The mere fact that we are still talking about the CFA is problematic. That's one element, but those are the less important aspects, and they are symbolic. After all, the currency is an instrument, as I said, of public policy. The debate we are having is whether this currency, as it exists today, is suited to our development choices. The direction we want to take should depend on the answer to this question. The CFA currency, pegged to the euro and the eurozone, seems to be too strong a currency for our economies, which would leave us as importing countries, consuming what is produced elsewhere. But it does not make us very competitive when we want to reverse this trend. However, the logic in our countries is to move towards a policy of import substitution. This is, among other things, one of the economic constraints. There are many others, notably the lack of flexibility and many other aspects. From that point on, it is the response we provide to these technical considerations that will determine our decision to move in one direction or another. And we have said, ever since my book in 2018, when I was a candidate in the presidential election, up to President Abbassidio Mai's program in 2024, we have remained consistent. We are part of a system that has its advantages, but also its drawbacks. We will open the discussion with our partners to tell them that we need to move forward. If a solution is found within this framework, so much the better. There's no reason for us to leave this currency. But if that is not the case, we will take responsibility. And we have always maintained this approach. When we arrived, the BCEO, which is the joint institution, presented us with the work they had done, which goes exactly in the direction of what we mentioned earlier. It is now up to the president to meet in order to validate a certain number of options. That is the political aspect. The technical experts have done their work, and we hope that the presidents will convene, will make decisions, and will allow us to take a significant step toward the full and final ownership of our currency so that we can have a monetary instrument and a monetary policy, which is not the case at present. That is why we are always forced to refocus on our fiscal policies, given the tensions we are experiencing. That is our position. We remain consistent. There is a lot of confusion being spread, you see, like they were the ones who said they would leave. We are taking a step back, but in a responsible way. And above all, we are Pan-Africanists. Everything we can do to maintain cohesion, we will do. But if we realize that things are not going in the right direction and that it is not good for us, Pan-Africanism also has its limits. It cannot be done at the expense of the interests of the states. From that moment on, we will take full responsibility regarding this currency.
All right.